We're pilgrims. We're sojourners. We're strangers in this world. So what's the big deal? What difference does it make? Well, Peter seemed to think it made a big difference in the way we act. You see, we're not exactly like the people around us.
You're listening to As You Go, a production of Free Will Baptist Women's Ministries. Wherever you're joining us from today, we're glad you're here. We want to grow together as disciples and as disciplers.
Hi, I'm Ruth McDonald, the director of Free Will Baptist Women's Ministries and the host for your podcast today. We've entitled today's episode, There's No Place Like Home. You know we got that title from Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. She's clicking her heels together and wishing to go back to Kansas, to her home. If you're not driving while you're listening today, close your eyes with me and think, home. What comes to your mind? What do you envision when you think of home? Maybe it's the home you grew up in as a child. Or maybe it's your current address. Or maybe it's a memory of a person or an event that is dear to your heart. Whatever the case, we all have a memory, an impression of home. Home, sweet home. Now, mine may be a little different than some of yours. I actually don't think of a particular place when I think of home because I moved an awful lot when I was growing up. I knew I had moved a lot, and so I started to list them in preparation for this podcast. And I was a little fuzzy on some of my very earliest places of residence, so I called my older sister, and she helped me fill in the blanks. And we came up with an astonishing number that I have lived in 41 places in my life. I think that's a bit ridiculous, actually, but it is absolutely true. The place where I now reside is my 41st home. Seems like I have moved, when I did the math, on an average of once every 1.6 years of my life. So it's no wonder that I don't think of a place when I think of home. My concept of home is much more tied up with people and events. And don't feel sorry for me, because I don't. I had a very stable home in that I had a very stable family that loved me. I was always safe. I was always provided for. And my mom did a really good job practically of moving some of her things around with us. Even though we did sell everything and move with U-Hauls a lot, she had certain things that she kept and that she always hung on the walls or decorated with as soon as we reached our new home. So our living room and my room and the dishes we ate off of were always the same and gave me a very strong sense of security and home. I don't know how your childhood played out. If any of you have lived in more than 41 homes, I would love to be your friend. So please send me a comment, because I'd like to talk about how messed up both of us are from moving so many times. There's a children's author that I really love. His name is Alan Say, and he's a Japanese American. And he wrote a lot of books that really resonate with people like me and with missionary kids and third culture kids. And in one of those books, he said, "The moment I am in one country, I am homesick for the other." That really resonates with me because actually the word home is very nebulous for me, and I often use it interchangeably to mean any number of things or places. For example, I will say, I'm leaving home or I'm coming home, just interchangeably. And my kids kind of make fun of me because they say, "Mom, which one is home? Is it America? Is it Japan? Where is it?" And I'm like, I don't know. That's why my language is so unprecise, because I'll say I left Japan to come home, or I left America to go home, or I just use them interchangeably all the time. About a year ago, my husband and I left our home in Japan and we came home to America. See what I mean? That's how that word works in my vocabulary. They're all home to me because a part of my heart resides in all of those places. And like Alan Say, I'm no sooner in one country than I'm homesick for the other. During the time about a year ago when we were leaving Japan, we hit a little glitch with our belongings. We had always anticipated that we would, like most missionaries, when they retire or leave their field for the final time, we would be able to ship our things back in a shipping container and bring them back to the States. And with that in mind, for the last several years, I had collected some kind of neat stuff, some Japanese antiques and some furnishings that I planned on bringing back home to America when I came. But if you remember that little thing called COVID, we came back to the States at a very difficult time, kind of a perfect storm. There was a lot of trouble with shipping, especially. You remember all those ships stuck in ports all over the world because of distribution problems with fuel, because of customs, because of health codes. And it became obvious throughout the months we were preparing that we were not going to be able to ship our things. Most companies were just saying a flat no to individuals wanting to ship personal belongings. And when they did quote a price, it was astronomically high to the point that it was totally not doable. So when it came right down to it, we had to part with a lot of our belongings and just come home with suitcases. Now, that was difficult for me. I think it probably would have been for most women to let go of those physical possessions. And it was during that time that one of my senior missionary friends, a lady who had walked the walk, she said to me, "Ruth, you need to adopt this as a verse. The verse in the Psalms that says, 'Blessed are they whose heart is set on pilgrimage.'" I just thought that was a wise word, fitly spoken at the time that I needed it. So later I looked it up and I did a little study, and that's what I want to talk to you today about. Psalm 84 is where we're going to be looking today as we talk about home and a heart set on pilgrimage. Now, when I hear the word pilgrim, especially at the time of year that I am recording this, it's the fall, and I think about the pilgrims on the first Thanksgiving. I know this podcast is being listened to around the world and that not all of you celebrate American Thanksgiving, but at the American Thanksgiving, some of the main characters are the pilgrims who left England that they found oppressive, and they came to the New World in order to be able to worship in the way that they felt God was leading them to. It fits with the definition, the dictionary definition of pilgrim, which says, a person on a journey toward a specific destination, often for religious reasons. So that's why they were called pilgrims, with their funny hats and their interesting outfits. I also think about people that make pilgrimages in various religions. I especially think of the Muslim faith, where people make a pilgrimage to Mecca because there's a special blessing. There's supposed to be a special blessing in that for them. A pilgrimage for a religious reason, going to a specific destination in order to accomplish or gain some kind of religious reward. Actually, that is the context in which we read Psalm 84. It's actually called a Psalm of Ascent, which means going up to Jerusalem in order to worship on a special feast day there in the temple. In the Bible, there are many words that are used synonymously with pilgrim. One of those words is sojourn, sojourner. That's not a word I hear much in modern English, but it is a person who is passing through on their way to somewhere. Often the word is used called foreigner. A foreigner is a person who is a pilgrim or a sojourner. They're living in a country that's not their own for some specific reason and specific length of time. Also, they're called exiles. They're not in their own country. They've been sent to another place. They've also been called aliens in the Bible. Now, that one makes me laugh because I know we think of little green men when we think of aliens. And it also makes me laugh because during the years we lived in Japan, we carried around our identification papers in a little card that was called our alien registration. So did you know that we were aliens? That always just gave me a chuckle. I didn't know that I was a little green man, but apparently I was an alien. In the Bible, in Psalm 84, the Psalm of Ascent, they were on their way to Jerusalem. But what about the other sojourners in the Bible? The Israelites, when they left Egypt, sojourned in the wilderness. Abraham, when he left his home to go to a place that God would show him. He was looking for a city whose builder and maker was God. He left a lot of his things and lived in tents for several years while he searched for the place where God would lead him. Mary, Joseph, and Jesus were actually called sojourners or refugees when they left their home to get away from the threats of Herod, who was killing the boy babies. And the Apostle Paul sojourned throughout many countries, planting churches. He was not in his home, but he was in these different places for a specific reason. Peter refers to the early Christians as sojourners or pilgrims. He says, to the elect who are sojourners of the dispersion in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. Other versions use the word exiles, foreigners, strangers, or refugees. They were scattered because they were persecuted in their homelands, and they were sojourners or strangers in other places. Also, he says in 1 Peter 2:11, Beloved, I urge you, as sojourners and exiles, to abstain from the passions of the flesh, which wage war against your soul. Now, there's a hint there that being a sojourner or an exile is supposed to make a difference in the way that we live and the way we identify ourselves. Now, I just have to tell you a cute little story today. Something that happened many, many years ago. I was just a young woman, and I was helping Carol Reed, who was one of our previous guests, if you know. And we were directing the children's programs at our home church in Nashville many, many years ago. We had 2 programs that season. One of them was where each of the kids in turn gets up on stage and does their little rhyming poem of 4 lines. You know the kind. They're so cute. They get up there and they say da 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 da. You get it, right? I don't have to go on. And then simultaneously, though, we were working on a Christmas musical. And it just had some dialogue through it. And it was set around the idea of modern Christmas and how people sometimes say Xmas. And some of us don't like that. And a little girl was supposed to say, well, what's the big deal? What difference does it make? All right, so you get the setting. Little girl named Christy, who was a sassy little thing, she had her little 4-line poem memorized very well. So when it came time to get up and say it, we were expecting her to do great. But instead of her poem, she said the line that she had from the musical, which was, so what's the big deal? What difference does it make? It was completely out of context. And she just bounced right off the stage and went and sat down. And the audience just erupted in uproarious laughter because they were like, what a sassy and cute little girl. But only Carol and I knew where it came from. We looked at each other and laughed more than anyone till tears were just running down our faces because she just got her programs mixed up. Instead of saying her cute little poem, she said this sassy little line from the musical. But the reason I've never forgotten it is that every time I go to study the Bible or teach the Bible, I hear little Christy's voice in my head going, so what's the big deal? What difference does it make? Because it leads me to ask that question and find the practical application for us living in our world today. So I said we're pilgrims. We're sojourners. We're strangers in this world. So what's the big deal? What difference does it make? We've reached that point in today's talk. Well, Peter seemed to think it made a big difference in the way we act. He's saying, because you're sojourners and exiles in this world, abstain from the things that wage war against your soul. Abstain from the passions of the flesh, he said, as sojourners and exiles. So I think our identity as somebody who is just passing through makes a difference in the way we act. You see, we're not exactly like the people around us because we're in this world. We're not of it. Our citizenship is in heaven. Our names are written on the roll there. We're, if you will, caught carrying an alien registration card. We're not supposed to look like, act like, think like, and behave like the people around us because we're foreigners. Now, in Japan, the word for foreigner is gaijin. Gai meaning outside, and jin meaning person. If you ever visit Japan, you will get to know that word very quickly because you will get called that. Little children point to you and say, gaijin. There's a foreigner. You can't hide it. You're going to look like a foreigner because you look like a foreigner. And I must admit that sometimes I took advantage of the fact that I was a foreigner. I called it playing the gaijin card. What I mean by that is, if there was ever something that I did not want to do, could not feel good about participating in, I played the gaijin card. I mean, I would say, as a foreigner, I don't really think I can participate in that. In this world, we can play the foreigner card. We can play the I'm a citizen of heaven. I'm in this world, but I'm not of it card. We don't have to do like all the people around us. In Romans, the verses, chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, we're told, don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds. So it's okay for us to be different. This is not the world God intended for us. It is a depraved world. It's a broken and messed up world. And it's okay for us to realize, it's more than okay, it's great for us to realize that we are just passing through. We're not of this world, and we don't have to live like we're of this world. So what's the big deal? What difference does it make? It's about our identity and our behavior. It's also a very easy application on this subject is about our possessions. We are not of this world, therefore we should hold our possessions lightly. We're told in the Bible that we are not to lay up treasures on earth because they're temporary. Thieves steal them. Water damages them. Moths eat them. Rust corrupts them. We're not supposed to lay up for ourselves treasures on earth. We're supposed to be laying up treasures in heaven. Now, that's not always easy. And it wasn't easy for me. It was quite a process to give up some of my things that I really treasured. But I did find that it was a great test for me. And as my senior missionary friend said, it was a good challenge for me to ask myself, have I set my heart on pilgrimage? Am I living my life as if I am just passing through? I'm not putting down roots. I'm just passing through. There was a joke that old timers used to say until I heard my parents talk about it. Like there would be old miser so-and-so who was always all about money. And he passed away. And so people were speculating about how much, how much wealth and treasure did he leave? And so the joke goes, so how much did old miser so-and-so leave? And the answer is everything. No matter how much he had accumulated of this world's wealth, he did leave it all behind when he died. He left everything. My dad also used to always say he'd never seen a hearse with a U-Haul trailer on the back. I'm sure you've heard people say that too. And it's so true. Our treasures, earthly treasures, are temporary. And yet our home is eternal. The way we can lay up treasures, of course, is in the things we do that have eternal value. Best of all of those, invest in people. People are eternal. Invest in and teach the Word of God. The Word of God is eternal. Pray. Prayers are eternal. Did you know that? They go on after we die. So lay up your treasures in heaven, not on earth. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with having possessions. Please don't think that I am saying that. If you have a beautiful home and heirloom antiques. I am so happy for you. And I think that that's fine. And I think God, in balancing scriptural study, we realize that God says he has given us all things richly to enjoy. And even Abraham, though he gave up a lot of his stuff and lived in tents for a long time, when he got settled, he did accumulate wealth again. And I don't think that God had anything negative to say about that. But just make sure that your possessions don't possess you. Remember that the Bible says a man's life does not consist of the things that he possesses. There are so many more important things to set our hearts on in this world. Another thing that it makes a difference in, and that's the one I want to talk about a little bit, is just our sense of home. I'd like to go back to the passage for a minute, and I would like to read the next verse, which is another verse that always makes me laugh. The reason is that there's a word in this verse that is a Hebrew word, but it's also a word in Japanese. And the word in Japanese is kind of funny, so I'm going to explain that to you in a minute. The verse is in Psalm 84, right after the verse about setting our hearts on pilgrimage. It says, "Blessed are those whose strength is in you, whose hearts are set on pilgrimage. As they go through the valley of Baca, they make it a place of streams. The early rain also covers it with pools. They go from strength to strength. Each one appears before God in Zion." They're on a pilgrimage. They're wanting to see and worship God. And yet they are passing through the valley of Baca. Now, I just have to digress for a minute. Baca in Japanese means fool. It's kind of a bad word. Like the kids pick it up real early. I don't know about your kids, but my kids always picked up the bad words more easily than they picked up the good ones. Yours too? Did they pick up no or mine before they pick up please and thank you? Yeah, that's how kids are. And my kids picked up the word baka, which means fool or idiot or stupid. It's not like a bad word, but it's not a nice word. And it's one that kids insist on throwing at each other. You're a baka. No, you're a baka. So, yeah, it always makes me laugh when I read about these people passing through the valley of Baca. But that is not what this means. The valley of Baca. What does it mean? Well, first of all, I found in my studies that it probably isn't a real, actual geographical location. There doesn't seem to be a valley called Baca. This is the only place in Scripture that it's referred to. And the word Baca means, in Hebrew, weeping, the valley of weeping. Now we're starting to get, though they pass through the valley of weeping, they will make it a place of springs springing up and a place of strength. How is that possible? Well, let's go back to where their hearts are. They are a people whose strength is in God and whose heart is set on pilgrimage. In verse 2 of this psalm, they long and yearn to be in God's presence. Also in verse 2, they cry out for the living God. In verse 10, they would rather stand at the threshold of the house of God than live in the tents of wicked people. And in verse 11, they know God as their sun and shield and live with integrity. And in verse 12, they put their trust in the Lord of armies. I like that. The Lord of hosts actually means like the captain of many, many angels, the God of hosts, the Lord of armies. Because their eyes are focused on God, they see the valley of weeping not as a place of despair, but as a place to experience the faithfulness of the Lord even more deeply. In all of our lives, we will pass through the valley of weeping. There are a lot of causes. I'm not going to enumerate them because you can think right now of the valleys, probably plural, of weeping that you have passed through or are presently passing through. Our last episode of As You Go featured Margie Patton, as she talked to us about the passing of her husband, Wayne, and the valley of weeping that she passed through and probably is still passing through as she adjusts to her new life without him. And yet, if you recall, she talked about the faithfulness of God through that valley of weeping. She talked about how he was with her and with Wayne, and the special gifts and blessings that he poured out on them during their valley of weeping. That is the point of a heart set on pilgrimage. We don't have to go to Jerusalem anymore to experience the presence of God. Now, I've always wanted to go to Jerusalem. It's on my bucket list. But I don't have to go to the Holy Land to encounter the Holy God. I don't have to enter the Holy of Holies, which I never would have been permitted to do as a woman, in order to experience the glory and the presence of God. He lives in my heart. I have the Holy Spirit and the presence of God with me every day, no matter where I am and no matter where this sojourn, this pilgrimage takes me, even and especially through the valley of weeping. Our hearts set on pilgrimage, our hearts that are longing to walk with and talk with and commune with God. And we don't have to go to a particular place in order to do it. He came to us and he is with us in our day-to-day existence. Maybe one of your points of weeping has to do with your concept of home. All of us have a longing in our hearts for home. I don't know what your experience has been. I've told you a little bit about mine. I had a stable family, but a lot of different dwelling places. Maybe you didn't have a safe and secure place that you could call home. Maybe you didn't really even have a safe and secure family in which you felt at home. Maybe there's a deep longing in your heart for a place that you are protected, cherished, safe, that we think of as home. Maybe right now, in the particular valley of weeping that you're in, you feel like you're far away from home. I don't know what your circumstances are as you're listening today, but I want to encourage you that you do have a sun and a shield, a protector and a guide, a constant friend, and a person who is walking with you through the valley of Baca. Whatever it is you're weeping about, you can take it to him. And I encourage you today to keep your longing placed on him, longing for his presence, for his voice, for his touch as you walk through this pilgrimage that you've set your hearts on. Now, I don't know what your sense of home is or what you're living in. You may be living in a gorgeous mansion, or you may be living in a less than ideal location. But I do know that you have, if you are a child of God and a believer in Jesus, you have quite a home to look forward to. Right now, where the Spirit of God is your home. But in the future, you also have a home to which you can look forward to. My friend Sandra was a wonderful person, and a person who did have a stable home when she was growing up, a home that she lived in pretty much all of her youth. She wasn't like me, that nomad existence. But when she became an adult, she became a missionary, and she moved around a lot, kind of like I did as an adult. And she was a homemaker and a homebody, in a way. And so that was not always easy, I'm sure. But especially the last few years that she and her husband were on the mission field in Japan, they'd had a ministry of filling in for other missionaries. They would go and when another missionary had to go stateside for a while, they would go and live in their house and work in their church and continue their ministries for them. They did it for us one time. They moved into our home, drove our car, took care of our cat, did all the things that we had been doing at the church. And it was such a wonderful blessing to us and to the church. But after she had done several rounds of this, living in somebody else's home, using somebody else's stuff, driving somebody else's car, it was starting to get a little old. And she was not a complainer. But I did hear her one time say, I'm getting a little tired of this. I'm ready to settle down and live in my own place with my own things. You might have already figured out, those of you who knew, that I'm talking about Sandra Bishop and her husband Dale. Well, when it came time to retire, Sandra was looking forward to putting down some roots, settling in her own home with her own things, and living there a really long time. As it turned out, though, that wasn't exactly what happened for Sandra. She and Dale went back to the States, and yes, they were able to take their furniture because it was pre-COVID, and I'm glad they were. But it wasn't very long after she got back to the States and was enjoying her home that she got sick, and she ended up passing away from cancer. 3 years was all she got to live in that home in the States. That's why it struck me as really meaningful when the pastor at her funeral, which I was watching on live stream, read from Ecclesiastes 12:5 at her memorial service. It talks about that our life here is just a short span, and then we go to our long home. Now, it had been a while since I had heard that verse or read that verse in the King James Version. And it just struck me. The long home. We're going to our long home. I looked it up in other versions and it was translated our eternal home, our forever home, our everlasting home. Whether you've moved a lot or not at all, you've never lived anywhere forever. But someday you will. You will live in the house of God forever. There will be permanence. There will be stability. It will be a place where we never have to leave. We never have to give up a possession or pack a possession. It's a place where we will move and never go away. Our eternal home. Randy Alcorn, in his book, Heaven, said, if you're a Christian suffering with great pains and losses, Jesus says, be of good cheer. The new house is nearly ready for you. Moving day is coming. The dark winter is about to be magically transformed into spring. One day soon, you will be home for the first time. Wherever this podcast finds you today, I pray that it's an encouragement to you. Lean into the arms of the Savior who walks with you through every mountain and valley. Trust in Him. Hold your possessions lightly and know that your citizenship is in heaven. And may He bless you along the way. I want to say before I close today that if you've been enjoying the podcast, and I know that many of you have because you've written to me and said so, I would like to give you an opportunity to give an offering for the continuation of this ministry. It's costing a little bit to make these podcasts, not terribly, but we do pay a professional editor to make me sound better than I really do. So if you're enjoying the podcast and it's blessing you, I pray that you will find it in your hearts to make a contribution to the ongoing ministry of As You Go. I'm going to leave a link for that here on the screen and in the comments below. Thank you so much, and may God bless you today.